You can't stay here anymore." Those words came from my own daughter. She stood tall in the doorway of the mansion I once called home, her hand pressed against the polished wood as if she were guarding a fortress. My fortress. My family's fortress. I froze, suitcase in hand. My body felt heavier than the luggage I clutched. "What did you just say?" My voice cracked, though I tried to steady it. Her eyes, once soft with childhood warmth, were now cold mirrors. "Mom, it's time. You can't live here anymore. Things are different now." The foyer around us gleamed. Marble floors stretched like ice. Golden light spilled from a chandelier I had chosen years ago. The smell of champagne still lingered in the air. Remnants of the inheritance party she had thrown just last night. $33 million. That's what my late husband left her. His company shares, investments, and assets. It should have been a blessing, a chance to build, to secure the family's future. Instead, it built a wall between us. Her husband, Ethan, appeared behind her. A tall man with slicked back hair and the kind of grin that never touched his eyes. He leaned casually against the doorframe, swirling amber scotch in a crystal glass like he was already king of the world. "It's nothing personal," he said smoothly. "You'll manage. We need boundaries now. Space. Space." That word cut sharper than any knife. I looked past them. The framed family photos that once lined the hallways. Me holding her as a baby, us celebrating birthdays, even one with my late husband smiling proudly, were gone. In their place, abstract art, soulless canvases splattered with paint that matched the new velvet drapes. My life erased in a single night. I stepped forward, suitcase dragging. "I gave up everything for you. When your father worked late, I was the one who stayed up with you through fevers, through exams, through heartbreaks. And now you want me out of my own house." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's not like that, Mom. It's just, I need to live my own life." Ethan interrupted, raising his glass. "She's grown. Time to let go. You understand." Understand? I understood betrayal. I understood greed. I understood how quickly a man like him could poison a daughter's heart. My chest tightened. Memories of the past flooded in, her laughter when I taught her how to bake. The nights I stayed awake worrying when she missed curfew. The years I stretched every dollar after her father died to make sure she never lacked a thing. And now, with $33 million in her account, I was suddenly extra. A burden. My throat burned. "I am your family." For the first time she looked at me, truly looked. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the softness away. "You'll be okay, Mom. Please don't make this harder." The suitcase handle dug into my palm as I tightened my grip. Outside, the night air pressed cool against my back. Behind me, their mansion glowed like a palace. I stepped onto the porch. My shoes clicked against the stone steps, each sound echoing like a final verdict. At the bottom, I stopped, turned. For a moment, I thought she might call me back, rush into my arms like she used to after nightmares. But she only stood there, framed by light, a stranger in my daughter's skin. Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. His smirk widened. The door shut. The lock clicked. I whispered into the darkness, my words meant for no one but myself. "She doesn't know it yet, but she just locked the wrong door." The weight of betrayal pressed heavy, but something else stirred beneath it. A spark. Promise. This was not the end. Not by far. I counted the nights on the thin mattress of a rented room. 3. Each night felt longer than the one before. The buzzing neon sign outside the cracked window flickered endlessly, painting the room in sickly pink and green. The hum of traffic never stopped. It was a world away from the silence of the mansion's marble halls. I lay on the mattress, my suitcase beside me like a loyal companion. The sheets smelled faintly of bleach and cigarettes. The air conditioner rattled with every breath of stale air it managed to push out. This was where I had landed, discarded, humiliated, and forgotten. On the first night I cried. Quiet tears, muffled against a pillow that belonged to strangers. I wasn't crying for myself but for the girl I had raised. The girl who used to cling to my hand at the grocery store. The one who once whispered, "I'll never leave you, Mommy." But she had left. Or maybe worse, she had thrown me away. On the second night, anger replaced sorrow. I paced the narrow room, my footsteps creaking on the thin carpet. I replayed the moment over and over, her voice cold and detached, telling me there was no room for me. No room in a mansion with 12 bedrooms. That thought burned so hot inside me I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window watching cars crawl past, wondering how I had gone from raising a family to counting coins just to pay for instant noodles and bottled water. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. She had $33 million in her account, and I was down to the last bills in my wallet. By the third night, anger cooled into something sharper. Determination. I dug through my old leather purse, the one thing I refused to leave behind. Inside, folded and yellowing, were papers, fragments of my husband's estate, letters from lawyers, old contracts. I had kept them more out of sentiment than strategy, but now they looked different. Important. I spread them across the flimsy motel desk, flattening creases with my hands. My husband's signature stared back at me in blue ink. My eyes traced every line, every clause. That's when I noticed something. Condition. A detail I had overlooked before. The inheritance wasn't as simple as a transfer of wealth. Came with responsibilities. With rules. With consequences. My heart quickened. I pulled my phone closer, its screen casting a ghostly glow in the dim room. I searched for legal terms, cross-referenced with old emails. Piece by piece I built a picture. If my daughter mishandled the fortune, if she let someone misuse it, the entire estate could be put at risk. Not just the money but her name, her freedom. And Ethan, her charming, smug husband, had already been circling like a vulture. I remembered his grin as he raised that scotch glass, as if he already owned it all. I whispered to myself, she's in danger and she doesn't even know it. The room phone rang suddenly. I jumped, papers scattering to the floor. It wasn't the motel clerk this time. It was my old friend Rosa, who had heard I wasn't at the house anymore. "Where are you?" she asked, her voice thick with worry. "A place that smells like mold and regret," I answered, half joking, half broken. She sighed. "You deserved better. But maybe this will pass." I shook my head even though she couldn't see. "No, Rosa. Something's wrong with the money. I can feel it. She's not safe." Later that night I sat cross-legged on the bed. Papers spread around me like puzzle pieces. My eyes burned from reading but I couldn't stop. Then my phone buzzed again, this time an email notification. I opened it, expecting another bill reminder or spam. But it wasn't. It was from a name I hadn't seen in years. My husband's old business partner. The subject line made my pulse race. About the inheritance. "Call me. Urgent." I sat there in the flickering neon light, clutching the phone. My chest tightened, not from fear this time but from something else, hope maybe. Or power. For the first time in days I wasn't just a mother discarded like trash. I was the only person who might still save her. The money wasn't free. It came with strings tied so tight they could strangle. That was the first thought in my head as I spread my late husband's documents across the polished oak table of the public library. The place smelled of old paper and dust, a strange comfort after 3 nights in that motel. My fingers traced his handwriting on a letter addressed to me years ago, back when he first drafted the estate plan. The money must be protected. It should never fall into reckless hands. I could almost hear his voice in those words, a whisper of warning from the grave. I spent hours hunched over, my reading glasses sliding down my nose. The clauses were dense, packed with legal terms I barely understood. Words like fiduciary responsibility and reversion clause. But the more I read, the clearer it became. If my daughter failed to manage the inheritance responsibly, if she allowed fraud, waste, or illegal use, the estate could be seized, frozen, even reassigned. She thought $33 million made her untouchable. In reality, it made her vulnerable. And Ethan? He wasn't just pushing her toward extravagance. He was steering her straight into violation. When I tried to confirm my suspicions, I ran into walls. The estate lawyer's secretary told me he was unavailable. Another brushed me off. "You're not the beneficiary, ma'am." I clenched my jaw. Not the beneficiary but the builder. Without me, there would have been no legacy to inherit. I wasn't about to let them forget that. I finally caught a sympathetic ear in a young associate at one of the firms. His tie was crooked, his desk piled with too many case files. He looked tired enough to actually listen. He scanned the papers I slid across his desk. His brow furrowed. "These are serious conditions. If she's not complying, she isn't. I cut in. Then the estate could move for reversion. But someone has to prove it. Someone with standing. Standing, I repeated. The word tasted like power. Leaving the office, I replayed his words. Someone had to step in. Someone had to prove misuse. Someone had to save her from the trap she didn't even know she'd walked into. And that someone was me. That night, back in my motel room, I began collecting evidence. Every headline about her flashy spending. Every social media post flaunting her new cars and diamond necklaces. Every whisper from old friends about Ethan's business deals. Each piece was another thread. Woven together, they painted a picture of recklessness, of manipulation, of fraud waiting to be exposed. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew this. When the strings finally snapped, Ethan would be caught in them. The next morning, as I sipped cheap coffee from a paper cup, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. Hello. My voice wavered. A pause. Then a voice I knew too well, my daughter's. Mom. Just one word, but it carried all the weight of her pride cracking. Her tone was shaky, urgent. Nothing like the cold dismissal at the mansion door. Mom, I need you. For a moment I didn't breathe. The silence stretched so long she nearly hung up. Then I asked flatly, what happened? Her voice broke. It's bad. I don't know what to do. Can you meet me? The mighty heiress. The woman who had thrown me onto the street 3 days ago. Now begging. I closed my eyes, the words rolling slow off my tongue. I'll think about it. I ended the call before she could say more. For the first time since she locked me out, I felt the balance shift. Humiliation was gone. Fear was gone. In its place stood something steadier, stronger. I wasn't just her mother anymore. I was her last chance. 3 days after she threw me out, there was a knock at my motel door. It was frantic. Desperate. Nothing like the elegant parties and champagne nights she had been basking in. I rose slowly from the squeaky bed, my heart already knowing who it was. When I opened the door, there she stood, my daughter. Her designer dress was wrinkled, her makeup smudged, mascara streaks staining her cheeks. She clutched her phone in one trembling hand, her purse in the other. For the first time in years she looked small again. Not like a wealthy heiress, but like the little girl who used to run into my arms after a nightmare. Mom! Her voice cracked. Please. I don't know where else to go. I leaned on the doorframe, letting the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. Funny, I said finally. 3 days ago you told me there wasn't room for me. What changed? Her lip trembled. Ethan. He made me sign papers. I didn't even understand them. Now the lawyers are calling. They're saying I could lose everything. They're saying I could even. She broke off, covering her face. I don't know what to do. I studied her. The proud, polished daughter who once looked down on me now stood hunched, pleading, undone. A part of me ached to hold her, to comfort her the way I used to. But another part, the part she had trampled on, stayed cold. Sit, I told her, pointing to the motel chair. She obeyed instantly, sinking into it like her bones had turned to water. She spoke in bursts, the words tumbling out. He told me we were investing. He said it would double, triple even. But now they're saying it was fraud. That my name is on everything. That I could go to prison. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Mom, I'm scared. I let her words hang in the air. Finally I asked, and why should I help you now? Her head shot up, eyes wide. Because you're my mother. The same mother she had tossed out like trash. I crossed my arms, standing taller. When you had everything, I wasn't your mother. I was an extra mouth to feed. Remember? She flinched, as if the words struck her harder than any slap. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean it. I was stupid. I let him. No, my voice cut sharp. You meant it. And you let greed blind you. You let a man who doesn't love you decide that your mother didn't matter. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, Mom. I'll lose everything if you don't help me. I paced the room slowly, letting her squirm. Inside my heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. Here's what you need to understand, I said. If I step in, it will be on my terms. No lies. No games. And if Ethan is behind this, and I know he is, then he's going to regret ever thinking he could use you. Her breathing hitched. She nodded quickly, like a child agreeing to any punishment just to escape the scolding. Do you understand me? I asked, leaning close. Yes, she whispered. For the first time since she threw me out, the power was in my hands. Not hers. Not his. Mine. I looked at her trembling hands, her ruined makeup, the desperation in her eyes. She had built herself a palace of wealth, but now it was crumbling, and she was coming to me for shelter. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I finally sat down across from her. My voice was steady, almost cold. Then listen carefully. From this moment on, everything changes. He thought he could outsmart an old woman. He forgot who taught his wife how to fight. 2 days after my daughter showed up at my motel room, I walked back into the mansion. The air inside was thick with tension. Ethan was in the living room, lounging on a leather chair as if nothing in the world could touch him. A glass of scotch in one hand, his other arm draped over the side like he owned the place. When he saw me, his eyebrows shot up, then he laughed. Well, well. The ghost returns. Didn't I make it clear this wasn't your home anymore? I didn't flinch. You're right. It's not my home. I let the pause linger. But it's not yours either. He smirked, sipping his drink. You're wasting your time. She's my wife. The money is ours. Nothing you can do about it. Behind him, my daughter stood quietly, arms crossed, eyes swollen from crying. She didn't defend me, but she didn't defend him either. That silence spoke louder than words. I moved closer, sliding a folder onto the coffee table. Paper spilled slightly from the edge, copies of contracts, bank statements, evidence I had spent nights gathering. Ethan glanced down and scoffed. What's this? Old homework. It's proof, I said calmly. Proof of every forged signature, every fraudulent transfer, every account you tried to open offshore. All in her name, of course. Never yours. His smirk wavered. Just a flicker, but I caught it. You're bluffing, he said, voice tighter now. Am I? I leaned forward, lowering my voice so he had to strain to hear. The estate has clauses. Strict ones. If she mishandles funds, the money reverts. If fraud is proven, the estate presses charges. You didn't marry an heiress, Ethan. You married a liability. And you tied your future to her downfall. My daughter gasped softly, turning to him. Is that true? He set his glass down too hard, amber liquid sloshing over the rim. Don't listen to her. She's bitter. Jealous. She'll say anything to tear us apart. I straightened, my eyes locked on hers. Then ask him why your name is on every transfer. Why the offshore accounts list you as the sole beneficiary. Why the only thing he risked was your freedom. Not his. Her face went pale. She stumbled back a step, clutching the chair. Ethan, tell me she's lying. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. The next move was mine. I pulled my phone from my bag, pressing one button. The front door opened, and in walked 2 men in dark suits, estate representatives, accompanied by an investigator. They carried more folders, more evidence, more power than Ethan could ever fake. Ethan shot to his feet. What the hell is this? I smiled, a slow and steady smile. It's a meeting. One you weren't invited to. The investigator spread documents across the table, pointing to highlighted sections. We've been monitoring irregular activity tied to these accounts. Fraudulent contracts, unauthorized transfers. Mrs. Adams, your signature appears here, here, and here. He looked directly at my daughter. She shook her head wildly. I never signed those. I cut in, my voice sharp. No, you didn't. He did. The investigator nodded. And that makes this not just fraud but forgery. A criminal offense. Ethan's mask slipped. He lunged for the papers, but one of the men blocked him. His face twisted with rage, but beneath it, I saw fear. You think you're clever, he spat at me. You think you've won? You'll ruin her too, you know. You'll destroy your own daughter just to get back at me. I stepped closer, so close I could see the sweat beading on his temple. My voice was low, steady. I'm not here to ruin her. I'm here to save her. From you. My daughter sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. For the first time she saw him for what he was. A parasite feeding on her fortune, draining her trust, her life. Mom, she whispered. What happens now? I touched her shoulder gently. Now? We let the law finish what I started. Ethan tried to storm out, but the investigator's hand shot up, blocking his path. Outside, flashing lights cut across the driveway. Official cars pulling up, officers stepping out. I turned back to him, watching the panic spread across his smug face. You should have left me on the porch, Ethan. You might have stood a chance then. As they let him out in handcuffs, I felt something lift off my chest. Not victory. Not revenge. Something deeper. Justice. The courtroom smelled of old wood and paper. A place where truth and lies wrestled daily, and only one could walk out alive. I sat in the front row, hands folded, watching Ethan strut in with his lawyer. Even in handcuffs, he tried to carry himself like he owned the room. His suit was pressed, his smile polished, but his eyes darted too quickly, too often. He was rattled. My daughter sat beside me, pale and trembling. She clutched my hand as if it were the only solid thing in her crumbling world. Mom, she whispered. What if they believe him? I squeezed her hand. They won't. The truth has weight. And today, it's heavier than his lies. The judge entered, and the room hushed. Papers shuffled, whispers died. The case was called fraud, forgery, misappropriation of estate funds. Ethan's lawyer rose first, smooth as oil. He painted Ethan as a devoted husband, a man unfairly targeted by a bitter mother-in-law. He claimed the signatures were authentic, the transfers approved. A simple misunderstanding. I watched the jurors' faces, blank, polite, but unconvinced. Then it was our turn. The estate's investigator took the stand, laying out the trail of forged signatures. Slide after slide, contract after contract, each one a nail in Ethan's coffin. Ethan shifted in his seat, tugging at his collar. His smile had vanished. But the turning point came when my daughter testified. She stood trembling, voice shaky at first. She admitted she'd trusted him completely, never questioned where the money went. She confessed she ignored my warnings. Her shame filled the room like smoke. Then the prosecutor asked, Mrs. Adams, did you authorize these transfers? She looked at me just for a heartbeat, then at the jury. Her voice steadied. No. I never signed them. He forged my name. Every single time. The words cracked something open. A murmur rippled through the room. Ethan's lawyer scrambled to object, but the damage was done. Finally, it was my turn. I hadn't expected to testify, but when they called my name, I rose slowly, deliberately, and walked to the stand. I told them everything. The night I was left on the porch. The way Ethan wormed his way into the estate. The pattern of his manipulation, his lies, his greed. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just told the truth, plain and sharp. And when I finished, I looked Ethan dead in the eye and said, he didn't just steal money. He tried to steal my daughter's life. The room went silent. Even the judge leaned forward slightly. Ethan's lawyer tried to recover, calling a handwriting expert who claimed the signatures could be authentic. But then the investigator revealed the final piece. Security footage of Ethan entering the estate's office late at night, alone on the very nights the documents were signed. The jury saw it. They didn't need convincing anymore. By the time closing arguments ended, Ethan's bravado had crumbled. His hands shook. Sweat stained his collar. The jury filed out. Minutes felt like hours. My daughter clutched my arm, whispering prayers under her breath. When the jury returned, their foreman spoke just 3 words. Guilty on all counts. Ethan's face drained of color. He turned to my daughter, desperate, snarling. This is your fault. You betrayed me. She flinched, but I stepped between them, steady as stone. No, Ethan. You betrayed yourself. The bailiff led him away in chains. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. My daughter clung to me, tears streaming, but this time not of shame. Of relief. It's over, she whispered. I shook my head gently. No, my love. This part is over. But now comes the real work. Rebuilding what he tried to destroy. For the first time in years, she leaned her head on my shoulder, like she had as a child. And I knew. I hadn't just won a case. I had won my daughter back. The mansion looked different when I stepped inside again. Same marble floors, same crystal chandelier, but the air no longer carried Ethan's shadow. For the first time in months, it felt like home. My daughter trailed behind me, hesitant, as if the walls themselves might still judge her. She stopped at the threshold of the dining room, staring at the long table where Ethan once sat like a king. "Do you think people will ever forgive me?" she whispered. I turned to her. "That's not what matters. You have to forgive yourself first." We moved room by room, pulling down portraits Ethan had hung of himself, shredding documents that bore his forged name. Every drawer we opened was a reminder of his lies, but also a chance to take back space. By the time we reached the study, sunlight was streaming through the windows. Dust floated in golden beams, landing on the oak desk Ethan had claimed as his throne. My daughter sat in his chair for a moment, then pushed it away. "It never felt like mine," she admitted. "I just let him run everything. I thought love meant surrender." I put my hand on hers. "Love means partnership, not chains." That night we sat in the kitchen with mugs of tea, steam rising between us like fragile hope. She looked at me with eyes red from tears. "Mom, I should have listened to you. I chose him over you. I thought you were just bitter, jealous of my happiness. But you were trying to save me." I let her words sit in the air before answering. "You wanted to believe in him. There's no shame in wanting love. The shame belongs to the man who twisted it into control." She nodded, biting her lip. "And now, do you still trust me?" The question pierced deeper than any courtroom battle. I reached across the table, taking her hand. "Trust can be rebuilt, brick by brick. And tonight, we've already laid the first stone." Over the next days we worked together like we hadn't in years. We met with the estate's lawyers, undoing Ethan's mess. We visited the bank, signing new documents. This time, no forged signatures, no deception. Each step wasn't just legal work. It was healing. When I saw her laugh again, truly laugh, at a silly memory from her childhood, my heart clenched. For months I thought I'd lost her to him forever. But here she was, piece by piece returning to the daughter I knew. One evening she surprised me with an envelope. Inside was a deed. "To the house," she said softly. "Your house. The one Ethan sold without your consent. I bought it back." My breath caught. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," she interrupted. "It was yours. And I let him take it from you. I can't erase what happened, but I can give this back." Tears pricked my eyes. Not from the paper, not from the bricks and mortar it represented, but from what it meant. A daughter's attempt to mend the tear between us. Later that night, as we walked the garden, she said, "Do you think I can ever be strong enough on my own? Without you watching over me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't the naive girl who let a smooth-talking man take over her life. She had faced betrayal, shame, and public humiliation, and walked out standing. "You're already stronger than you know," I told her. "But strength doesn't mean standing alone. Even I need someone sometimes." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and the silence between us felt whole, not broken. The scars were there. They always would be. But scars mean healing, not defeat. And as the night wrapped around us, I realized something. Ethan hadn't just failed to destroy us. He had given us a gift he never intended. The gift of rebuilding. Not just wealth or houses, but the bond between mother and daughter. 3 weeks after Ethan's sentencing, the mansion was alive again. Not with parties or false smiles, but with quiet mornings, fresh flowers on the tables, and laughter echoing faintly from the garden. I walked through the halls slowly, pausing at each window. Every pane of glass reflected not just my face, but a journey. From betrayal to courtroom, from loss to reclamation. The house felt lighter now. Not because of wealth or the marble floors, but because Ethan's poison had been stripped from its veins. My daughter joined me on the balcony, gazing out over the city. She was calmer now, no longer the trembling woman who begged for my help in the dead of night. Her voice was steady. "They sentenced him to 12 years, she said. "Do you think that's enough?" I studied the skyline. Enough? No. But justice isn't about erasing the past. It's about drawing a line. He can't cross ours anymore. She nodded, though a shadow lingered in her eyes. That evening she cooked dinner. A simple meal, nothing like Ethan's lavish displays. We ate in the kitchen, not the grand dining hall. Just 2 women, mother and daughter, side by side. Halfway through the meal she set down her fork. "Mom, I need to say this one more time. I'm sorry." For the words I threw at you. For turning my back when you needed me. I placed my hand over hers. And I need to say this, I forgive you. Completely. We both got caught in his trap. What matters is we climbed out together. A few days later, I visited the small house she had bought back for me. My house. I walked the rooms slowly, touching the walls, the door frames, the old furniture that had somehow found its way home. This was where my story had begun, long before Ethan and his schemes. Neighbors waved as I stood in the doorway, welcoming me back. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. And it was enough. The newspapers spun their headlines. Millionaire heiress escapes husband's fraud. Mother-daughter duo rebuild after betrayal. Reporters wanted interviews, cameras wanted angles. I refused them all. This wasn't a story for tabloids. It was a story for us. One afternoon, my daughter asked, "Will you move back into the mansion with me?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart. That's your home. This is mine. But I'll visit often. And this time you'll always have a place at my table." Her eyes glistened. "And you'll always have one at mine." It wasn't about houses or fortunes anymore. It was about respect. Mutual, earned, and unshakable. Weeks later, we walked past the courthouse one last time. She looked at the building with a mix of dread and relief. "Do you ever think he'll come back for us?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "He can't touch us. Not anymore. Not because of locks or guards. But because we've learned something he'll never understand." She tilted her head. "What's that?" "That no amount of money gives a person real power. Real power comes from dignity. And that's something he never had." We stood there for a moment, the city bustling around us. I realized the story wasn't just about Ethan's downfall. It was about reclaiming who we were before him and who we would be after. And I knew deep in my bones this would be the last time I ever spoke his name aloud. Final moral and closing line for viewers: people can steal money, homes, even trust. But they cannot steal dignity unless you hand it to them. I refused to hand mine over. And in the end, that was the weapon that saved us both. So if you're watching this, remember, dignity and accountability always outlast greed. And if you want more stories like mine, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and never forget, your worth is never defined by those who betray you.